If you're looking to close more deals, but you don't know what you're doing wrong, by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to run your sales meetings from start to finish using my battle-tested sales scripts. I've used it to train over 170,000 sellers around the world, and I will compress all those learnings into this single video. Now, getting into our ultimate sales scripts, there are going to be 10 steps for you today. First 9 are going to be exactly how you can start to finish your sales from the moment you shake someone's hand all the way to pitching and closing the deal. And number 10 is going to be a bonus advanced section for people who have been in sales for a while to make sure that people don't flake at the last minute. Building rapport is the first step of a sales process, but as you begin the conversation, you'll need to ask some questions to learn more about your prospect. It's not as simple as just asking random questions, but you need to ask very specific questions in a very particular way to continue to build trust and learn more about your prospect to see how you can best help them. This is why you need to check out HubSpot's one-on-one sales qualification questions. This is extremely relevant because you'll know exactly what questions you need to ask to understand your client's needs, budgets, decision-making process, and timeline, which are all very crucial in closing a deal. My personal favorite is going to be the competitor and industry questions, because by asking specific questions, you're showing that you understand the market, you understand your customer need, and you understand the competition, and you can position yourself as something better than everybody else. So this resource was made possible by HubSpot, who's our sponsor for today's video. Check out the link in the description to learn more, and thank you, HubSpot. Now, the first step of starting your sales meeting from start to finish is going to be building rapport. And rapport is simply building a meaningful connection with another person. Now, no matter what it is you're selling, if the other person trusts you, if the other person likes you, it's going to be so much more easier to sell. Think about it. If you were to buy a product or service from a friend, chances are you already trust this person, so you're more likely to give them your money for something. And so when it comes to building rapport, there's a couple things. How do you get someone to like you if they're meeting you for the first time and they have no idea who you are, especially for those who are cold calling, cold emailing, and whatever the case is? Well, the first step is actually your tonality, because you will be judged based on your tonality, meaning how you sound, how fast or slow you're speaking, and in your inflection, how high or low you're speaking. So if you're sounding, "Hey John, how's it going? This is Patrick from ABC Marketing," they're instantly going to be turned off. They're not going to listen to your cold calls. Even if a friend referred you to them, they're going to be like, "What the heck? Like, why did my friend refer you?" So your tonality of how you sound is going to be extremely important, because it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. When it comes to cold calling or doing these meetings, you have to understand that there's no magic one-liner that 100% is going to work all the time, because every situation is different, every person's different, how they want to be spoken to is going to be different, so you have to adjust. So anybody who tells you, say this magic line and it's going to work, probably won't, right? This isn't a pickup artist class, this is sales, right? This is cold calling, this is how to close deals. So what I found to be the most powerful when it comes to building rapport in any situation, whether it's cold calling or doing an actual sales meeting like a discovery call, right? You want to find things in common, okay? So this is going to be the ultimate hack. So if somebody is from the same area as you, has similar hobbies, are in similar fields, it's very easy to find this information on, let's say, LinkedIn. If you literally just type in their name on LinkedIn, you'll see like, oh, they went to these schools. Oh, you're from Los Angeles too? I went to school in Los Angeles, right? Oh, you're into fishing? I'm into fishing, right? And all the sales calls I've ever been on, having one point of common interest is very powerful, even if it's something very loose. On a normal call, literally, like all I really have to do is say, "Hey John, how's it going? It's Patrick. Really good meeting you here." And then they're going to say, "Oh, really great to meet you, Patrick." And that's literally building rapport. You don't even have to have a magic one-liner, literally, right? It's just how they are spoken to. So I would be like, "Hey John, how you doing today?" "Oh, I'm doing pretty good, Patrick. How are you?" "I'm doing great. Hey, by the way, I saw you actually went to USC for university. I actually went there too. How was it?" "Oh, damn, you went there too?" And that's literally it, right? That's exactly how these sales conversations go. It's very natural, and you'll find that you can find many things in common if you just do a little research on them, their company, and things like that. Now, real quick, if you're somebody that wants to launch your own business and attract paying clients using your passions and skills that you might already have, or skills you want to develop, you want to make sure to book a call on my calendar right now. I have a few spots where I'm taking on a couple of clients where I will help you build your business from scratch all the way to getting your first client. So if that sounds interesting to you at all and you want to take the leap of faith into entrepreneurship, make sure to book a call on my calendar in the description. So once you build that instant rapport, the person kind of likes you, right? But they want to see like, okay, so like, what are we doing today? So the key step here is you want to set the agenda, meaning what should the person expect for this meeting? The thing here is when you are doing any type of sales meeting, The worst thing is when the other person is just thinking like, when is this guy going to shut up? How long is this going to be? This person's wasting my time. They have all these questions in their head. So all you have to do is disarm them, set the agenda so they know exactly what they can expect on the call. So let me go ahead and give you an example of how to do this. There's really 3 steps, right? You want to say the time and purpose of this meeting, expectations for both sides, and what's going to happen at the end of the meeting. So let me give you an example. You can use this for cold calling. You can use it for sales meetings. And typically in a sales cycle, right, if you have multiple meetings before the deal closes, you're always setting the agenda for every single meeting so everybody is on track. A salesperson is the person that controls the conversation. So that's you. You got to control the conversation here. So here's how I would do it. So after setting rapport, you want to transition into the agenda, and all you have to say is something like, hey, John, do you mind if we go ahead and get started? Sure. Sounds good, Patrick. All right, great. Well, I want to take 15 minutes real quick to have a conversation if it makes sense to work with each other. Obviously, you have a lot of questions for me and what we do, and I'm going to have some questions for you to see if it's a good fit to work with each other. And by the end of the call, if we find that, hey, there's something here and it makes sense to move forward, great. But if not, totally okay. Is that okay with you, John? John will say, sure. Right? There's no reason for them to say no. They know the time and purpose of the call. They know what to expect, and they understand that we're just going to ask each other questions to see what the opportunity is. And I'm letting them know like, hey, like if there is opportunity, great. But if not, no sweat, no problem. And you have to understand, most people are not going to buy your product and service, right? So your goal is really just to qualify, vet them out to see whether or not they are a good fit, because you never want to sell something to somebody who shouldn't buy. So that is setting the agenda. So after you set the agenda, you might be thinking, okay, so like what's next? So the next step is going to be uncovering pain, which I believe is going to be the most important aspect of your sales meeting, because if there's no pain, there's no reason for someone to buy. And so pain is really just beginning that discovery phase where you learn more about your potential customer to see if there is a need to buy your offer. Again, no pain, no sell. So when it comes to pain, all you're really doing is asking questions to get the other person, the buyer, to get very emotional about their problems. And you want to take that pain and you want to grow it and grow it and grow it until that pain feels so painful that they have to do something to make that pain go away. And how will you do this? Well, there's 3 steps. You ask surface level questions, business questions, and personal questions. And I'll give you some examples of each one to show you exactly how you can do it for your specific sale. So the surface level question is you want to start light, right? You can't ask someone like, what keeps you awake at night, right off the bat, because they're like just learning about you. They're trying to build trust. In order for you to build trust, you start light and you move deeper and deeper and deeper into the person's personal problems. And I know this is business, right? But everybody has personal problems. Our business problems become our personal problems when it creates stress, right? We are all human beings. So surface level questions. Let's say you're selling like an AI marketing agency, right? For example, you could like look on their website or in their Instagrams, their socials, and say, hey, I noticed that you haven't implemented AI into any of your content creation. Just curious to know why you haven't started that yet. And they're going to go into, oh yeah, we heard about this AI thing, but it's really complicated. I just don't have time to. And then they're just going to go on and on about the problem. Then you just ask more questions depending on what they say. So you have to like change it up depending on their responses. So you can say like, oh, like, have you ever thought about actually implementing? I know you saw a lot of YouTube videos about this, but what about like actually doing it? And they'll say, oh no, well, I've thought about it. I feel it's like that, I could save a lot of time. And then they're going to give you problems, but I don't know how to do it. But my team doesn't have enough time. But, there's always a but. And you say, oh, okay, well, tell me more about that. How come you feel like your team can't do it? And they'll say something like, oh, well, my team is really good at creating content, but they're not very tech savvy, for example, right? I mean, it's just making up examples, but you'll get more and more into the pains. So based on those answers that they give, you want to keep asking questions that get deeper and deeper and deeper into the problem. And now when you get into the business questions, right, not just surface level, you're like, okay, well, it seems like a lot of your competition who are in the content creation space are implementing AI and they're able to create like 20 videos a day, or it's 20 shorts. And I'm really curious to know like your perspective on this, because if your competition is putting out so much content and they're getting a lot of views and it's almost just as good as a regular editor doing it, do you feel that you might be being left behind by your competition? Or how do you feel about that? You don't have to ask a yes or no question. You can ask more of an open-ended question, which is typically better. And they will say like, oh, really? Yeah, I kind of been noticing that they've been pumping out those videos. We're not really able to keep up. I guess that is bothering me. And then you would ask more questions like, okay, well, tell me more about that. Like, what do you think will happen over time if this continues? They'll be like, well, if AI gets that good, I think I'm going to be totally smoked, right? Once you get into the business pains, you want to get into the personal pains, right? Because if the business fails for an entrepreneur, it's a personal fail, right? Because entrepreneurs are very attached to their businesses. So don't think of business and personal life as separate. They are one of the same. It's all contextual, right? But this is like the basic framework and you could apply it into your specific sale. You want to ask questions like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel it's hopeless to do it on your own? How do you think I might be able to help? And so when you ask these questions, what's going to happen is they'll be like, oh man, I feel like I'm a loser. I'm getting left behind. Like I should be learning these things. Do you feel like it's hopeless to do it on your own? They'll probably say like, I don't think it's hopeless, but I just don't have enough time because I'm so busy with this. And especially if somebody has money, but they don't have time, that's also an opportunity for you to like slot in, right? Then if you ask, how do you think I might be able to help? You're actually getting the prospect, the potential buyer to sell you on why you should help them, right? So if you ask, how do you think I might be able to help? Well, if you had a service where you can just do all of this for me and at a reasonable price, I'll be open to it. And so these are how you uncover the pains. You want to get it so painful that the prospect eventually feels like they really need your product and service and they're coming up with ideas on how you might be able to help them, right? Now the next step of the process is going to be budget. So we basically uncovered the need, the pain that somebody has. They feel like they can't do it on their own. And now it's like, okay, well, do they have the money to buy your product and service, right? And you want to uncover how much money a person has to spend. Now there's a couple tips when it comes to the budget. The first one is going to be, you want to ask the budget multiple times because a person doesn't always just tell you the budget. It's not going to be like, hey, how much money do you have to spend on this? Well, first of all, they don't even know what services you're really offering. So how would they have a budget for this? Sometimes they might have a budget. Like let's say if you're selling a software and they like an HR software and they know they want to only spend like $5K a month, they might have a budget. Again, it's all contextual, right? But whatever the case is, you want to ask multiple times because they won't give it to you the first time. They may not give it to you on the second time, but the third time they might do it. And so you have to ask in different ways. So you can say like, hey, just curious if you had a budget for this. Yeah, we do, but I don't really want to say it right now. They might say like that, right? And then you have the conversation and then you might use a ranging strategy, right? Which is point number 2. A ranging strategy is basically instead of asking the budget directly because people don't want to give it up because you're negotiating, you want to just do a range. Just be like, okay, well, do you think it would fall between somewhere of 5 to 10K? They might say, yeah, that's about right. Or they might say, oh no, that's way too high. So you just want to make sure like you're qualifying them. Like, do they actually have the money? Now for budgets, if in B2B sales, obviously you're going to negotiate, you want a good deal. So you also want to use the anchoring strategy. I'll show you how to use the anchoring strategy by itself and also how to combine it with the ranging strategy. Let's say in the event you said, hey, do you think it's somewhere between 5 and 10K? And the person says, I really don't want to say. At this point, what they probably want is for you to tell them your price, right? And they are going to negotiate you down. So you knowing that, you want to anchor your price high, meaning just set a higher price, higher than what you're willing to accept, knowingly that they're going to continue to reduce your price and negotiate because they want a good deal. If you want $5,000 and $5,000 for this particular thing is a win for you, you might want to say it's $8,000, right? And you say, okay, so normally for something like this, it's going to be $8,000. And you just kind of wait and see their reaction. If they're like, oh, $8,000, that's so cheap. Great, you're at $8,000. But they might say, oh, $8,000, that was higher than I was expecting. And so you might say, all right, well, this is what we normally charge, but what exactly were you expecting? And let's see if we can like work something out. And they might say, oh, I was thinking something more like $6,000. Okay, interesting. And then so now you have a negotiation of what you can do to get that price to $6,000. And all you really have to do is, if you have products and services, you just remove line items until the price gets to the point they want. And that's one of the easiest ways to negotiate. Now, if you were to combine this anchoring strategy with the ranging strategy, let's say you want 5K still a win, but you want to charge higher to see how much money you can make. Well, you would just anchor them higher. So you could say like, do you think we're going to land somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000? And remember, you're willing to accept 5K. So when you anchor 6 to 10 seems as high. So 6 seems like a good deal, right? So they're going to say like, okay, I was looking for $6,000. So maybe you're going to get $1,000 more than what you've been willing to accept, right? If you want to push it, right, you could say, typically for something like this, we're looking for something like $7,000 to $10,000. I'm just curious to know, is that something that fits the range you're looking for? And then now that $7,000 seems cheap, but they might say something like, we're more on the $7,000 side, but it's still too expensive. And then you just negotiate down to 6 or 5K, right? But it hopefully won't go below 5K because you already anchored them so high. And if both people walk away with a good deal, then it's a win. So that's in general how I would go about the budget. Now, even if you have the budget and they have the need, you still need the authority. Who is the decision maker? When it comes to the authority, there are usually hidden decision makers that you never thought of, right? If you're selling to a solo entrepreneur, it could be his staff, it could be his wife, it could be so many different people. If you're selling into an enterprise company, they have like an organizational structure. There's like procurement, there's accounting, there's, this guy's boss, there's the VP. So you want to uncover who exactly is the decision maker, who's actually going to sign off. How do you actually do it? Just ask. It's literally that easy. How I would ask is use the walkthrough strategy. So let's say you're talking to somebody on the phone and you say, okay, like it seems like you have a need, seems like you have the budget for something like this. Now I'm curious, to move forward with this deal, what exactly needs to happen on your side? And they're going to say, oh, well, I got to take it to my boss, and then I'm going to pitch him on why we need this software. And then we got to go to accounting and we got to ask if this price makes sense and we're able to afford it and all this kind of stuff. And then I got to go to this guy. So they're going to go on and on and on. And all you do is write it down, because that is going to be the next stage of your sales process. If you're never unsure of what to do on the next meeting, that's what you're doing. You're just checking all the boxes, making sure everybody's on board, everybody's buying in. And if, let's say, this person needs his boss's approval, you can do things like, hey, what we can actually do next week is, how about we have a meeting where you, me, and your boss all come into the meeting so I can kind of explain exactly what this is, so I can give you some backup, right? Some ammunition, so you don't have to sell it by yourself. If you have the opportunity to sell it versus your champion internally, that's going to be more powerful, because you are the best at selling your products and services. In general, just look for that decision maker. Who are the hidden decision maker? Timeline is going to be very important, right? Because you might have the need, the budget, the pain, but what about the time? When are they going to buy, right? When can they make a decision? So when asking on when you can make a decision, all you have to say is something like, when do you think you can move forward with something like this? They might say, I'm ready next week, I'm ready next month, I'm ready 6 months from now. So whatever the case is, note it down. If they don't want to answer, sometimes they don't know, or sometimes they just don't want to give it up for whatever reason. So you just want to guess, right? So your guess is predicated on your previous clients and what's typical there. So just understand that. And if you don't have any previous clients, just kind of think about empathy from their perspective on how long would it take for them to make a decision realistic. So you might say something like, hey, do you think you will be ready this week by the end of this call? 2 weeks from now? Whatever it is that makes sense for your particular sales cycle, go ahead and ask that. They will give you yes or no. If it's no, then you open the permission to ask, okay, well, then what do you think it would be? And now they have to answer, right? Because they gave you no, they got to give you something back. Now, whatever it is that they tell, understand that you can always speed up the sales cycle, meaning that sometimes somebody might say, oh, like I need 2 months before making a decision. And you want to say something like, okay, I totally understand that, you need time and everything like that. I get it. Now, I'm just curious, why exactly do you need 2 months? Because based on everything you're telling me, you could actually get started next week and start generating more revenue. So I'm just curious to know why you would want to push that out if this is a revenue generating activity. And they might say, oh, that's a really good point that I didn't think about. Well, I guess I could speed it up to 2 weeks. And then you would just ask more questions of like, okay, like why 2 weeks? So like, what's stopping you, And so whatever it is that's stopping them, you want to unblock it, and you want to kind of educate and even inspire your buyer to understand like, hey, like stop delaying it, get that thing done now, generate more revenue and accomplish your dreams, and like, come on. So that's how you can actually speed up processes. Even if you're trying to sell to small businesses or enterprise companies, there's always clever ways to speed up the process. And all it really comes down to is understanding what's stopping them or what's delaying them from making the decision sooner, and then doing what you can as a salesperson to unblock them. So this is how you're providing value, not just by selling, but you're actually speeding up a person's timeline, which actually might make a difference in their bottom line and as well as their revenue that they are generating. Now that we uncovered all these, checking all the boxes, now we're going to get into the pitch, because if you notice at this point, we haven't pitched anything yet. We haven't sold anything, and this is our time to shine. But understand, in any sales meeting, you're literally like listening 80% of the time, asking questions, and then you're talking 20% of the time. So this is that 20% where you actually explain to someone what you actually do. So a couple things here. Before you pitch, what you want to do is you want to ask permission to pitch. Now, this is very different from what people teach. Some people teach like, oh, you just got to go in there and just sell them. Nah, it's like, ask them if they want to hear what you have to say, because when they ask, what you say becomes more valuable because you are helping them. So how you start pitching is, first you want to ask them if they would like to hear how you can help. And it's simple as saying something like this. Okay, so I totally understand your situation. You want to get taken care of by the end of the month. Now, at this point, would you like me to tell you how I might be able to help? They're going to say, of course, that's why I'm here. If you do a good job on all the steps that we talked about, that's usually the reaction. So what you want to do is you want to first emphasize all the pain points that they just told you. So don't sell yet, re-summarize the pain. So it could be, saw that you're doing YouTube, but you're not using AI. Your editing team is already maxed out and you guys want to increase the amount of volume you want to put out by 5, but you're just not sure how to do it and you just don't have time to learn anything about AI. Just make it hurt. Remind them all the pain that they told you, especially the personal pains. And then the last step is you want to position your product and service as a solution to their pain. So all you're really doing is saying like, okay, so how I help people is usually for content creators, they have this same bottleneck as you. And what we do is we take their XYZ and then we run it through our agency to create AI videos and we basically do all the steps for you. Every pitch is going to be different. So I'm not going to go doing the exact pitch like right here, but that's essentially how you want to do it. Whatever products or service you're providing, all you do is remind them of the pain and then explain to them how your specific thing solves that pain. You're not making enough videos. We're going to use AI to crank out videos by 5x while maintaining the 90% of your quality as your main editors, right? That's an example. Or you're generating leads on LinkedIn, but the amount of leads you want, well, we're going to help you go viral and we guarantee that you're going to get a 5x amount of leads or we're going to give you your money back, right? So it really just depends on what you're selling. And that's how you make what you're selling more valuable. Now, if you rewind and we go to the beginning of the sale, imagine if I said, hey, I'm going to help you generate more leads on LinkedIn and make you go viral. They're going to be like, well, do I really need that? I'm generating leads just fine, right? So they're so much more skeptical. But if you go down this process and you uncover the pain and they say like, I want to solve this, I want to solve it now, here's why I can't do it myself. And then you position your service or product as a solution, then suddenly what you're saying becomes way more valuable. So you see, it's not even pushy. It's literally just matching a problem and solution together, and that what's allow you to become more persuasive. So now we're gonna get into objection handling, right? So this is where after you pitch, they're gonna have reasons for why they don't want to buy. So I'm gonna show you how to handle any objections, right? Of course, there are one-liners and things like that, but I'm gonna give you the overall framework so that you can apply it into your specific sale. The first thing is you wanna change your mindset. So you have to understand that objections are actually good for your sale because it gives you an opportunity to better help your clients and give them the confidence in your product or service. By answering those objections flawlessly, they're going to have more confidence in you. And objections are just reasons for why someone can't buy, right? And your job is to remove those objections. The second thing is you want to empathize with the person. Understand that you have to see it from their perspective, right? I remember this one guy was trying to sell me something. I was very skeptical of his product. He was like, I believe in my stuff. I believe in my product. I'm like, yeah, but I don't, so I'm not going to buy it, right? I don't care how much you believe it. I need to believe it too. You want to emphasize with the other person. And number 3, whatever objections that you get, you want to make a list. So because typically when you're selling a specific product and service, most people are going to come into the same objections and the same problems. So you want to have like the answers on the back of your hand. And all objections is really just answering their question. So for example, they might say, okay, if I go through your coaching program and you're saying that you're going to potentially 3x my revenue based on what you see, what happens if it doesn't work? Then if you really have like a guarantee, for example, you can say, okay, look, if you really do all the steps and you put in the hours and you do all the worksheets that we gave to you and I'm seeing it, I'm on your calls and I'm helping you, holding your hand along the way and coaching you, and you still didn't get the result that I basically said I would get you, I'm going to give you your money back 100% guaranteed because that means my stuff doesn't work. However, but because I've done it so many times before and I helped so many people similar in your shoes, I'm very confident that it will work. But if it doesn't for any reason in that scenario, I will give you your money back and we can have it in the contract. Does that sound fair to you? They're going to say, absolutely, right? And so that's how you handle objections. You literally just tell them the truth. If someone's not confident in your product and service, you just remove that blocker and make them more confident, because sales is really just the transfer of belief. I believe in my stuff. I believe in my product and services. Now I need you to believe so that you can help yourself become the best version of you. Let's go ahead and go into the close, right? Because the close is where you seal the deal. Now, the first key here is that people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. So you want to create situations where, they're buying, right? Like if you buy a new iPhone or a new laptop or a new speaker or whatever you're into, you don't have to be sold on these things. Nobody has to convince you to buy an iPhone. You want to buy it because you know it's sick, right? And so you want to create that feeling for your prospects. You want to create that experience, right? The goal is not to sell, but to make the prospect feel excited to buy your products and services. Now here in this video, I said like one-liners don't work, but in the close, I gotta say from my personal experience, one-liners absolutely do work, right? You just have to apply it for your specific sale. There's many different closes, and it all depends if you're transactional, more strategical, where it's long-term, where it's short-term. Like for example, I just bought the camera that I'm filming on. I bought it at the Sony store the other day, right? I went to the store. I'm like, oh, I really like this one. It was sold out, and I got the person's contact, and I was like, okay, yeah, just let me know when you have it, and I'll buy it. They're like, okay, cool. So a couple of days later, they texted me and they said, hey, Patrick, the camera's gonna be in stock next week, but if you put $100 deposit today, we're gonna give you some free gifts like an SD card, a camera bag, and all these kind of stuff. If you want to give the deposit, then we can actually get you all those free gifts. And I was like, I'm going to buy the camera anyway, but they sped up the sales cycle. And the moment that camera hits their store, I'm going to go back to the store and buy it, which I absolutely did. So they closed me by using a deposit strategy. So in technology for subscription, right? In strategic deals, I'll show you what we kind of did in Silicon Valley. Let's say we're charging $50K a year for certain software. We might say, hey, listen, normally we actually charge $65,000 per year for something like this. However, if you can make the decision within the next month, I can work with my team to reduce the price to $5,000. You just wait and you just let them see what they have to say. And usually they'll be like, oh, wow, that's a great discount. Okay, let me work with my team. Let me have a meeting with them. Let's try to move this faster, right? And so discounting, or the perception of a discount, right? Because you're kind of making up the numbers in B2B anyways. If I had said, oh, like we usually charge 100K and then we're going to knock it down to 50K, that can also be true, right? Whatever it is you say, you have to make it believable. Otherwise, other persons, they'll think you're just lying. If you do a close and use some of these one-liners, what happens when the prospect doesn't close? What happens when they don't say yes? So they'll give you an objection, you handle the objection, and then the next thing you say is this: now that we covered that, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? And they might say, oh, well, thanks for answering that question, but I'm not really sure about this. So it's another objection. Then you handle that one. And once you handle it, then you say again, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? Then they'll give you another one. Do you handle that objection, right? Again, you're just removing the blockers until they have nothing left to say. And then finally, when you say it for the last time, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? The other person will say, no, I know everything I need to make a decision. And then you say, okay, well, when would you like to make the decision? And then they got to give you a time, right? If they say, oh, I need to think about it. Well, what do you need to think about, right? And so you have to just keep asking these questions until it's very clear on they need it, they want to buy it, they have the money, everyone involved in the process, it already says yes. So why aren't they signing? And you need to know. If you do not know, then it's your failing as a salesperson. We learned how to close the deal, but I'm going to show you one advanced technique for my sellers out there. It's going to be called the pullback, where we're going to use some reverse psychology to make sure the buyer is committed. So how does this work? Here's the problem that happens in sales. Even if you do all these steps, sometimes the person just backs out for a random reason out of nowhere at the last minute. So how do you reduce the chances that this happens? Well, you ask the prospect if there's any reason for why they would back out. So you would say like, hey, listen, we're going to do it today. I'm going to send you the contract right now. Now, just want to ask you, is there any reason for why you would not do this? Because a lot of people, they get to this stage and they sound very excited. They want to do this, but for some reason, some way, somehow, they just disappear and ghost me, right? Which is crazy. So I just want to make sure that you're not that type of person that, is going to do that, because it seems like you're very serious about improving your business. You want to kind of reaffirm their commitment level by saying these things, and you want them to say it in their own words. So when a buyer says, yeah, Patrick, I'm in all the way. I'm going to get this contract signed to you tonight. I'm going to wire you the money this week. And so when they say it with their own words, they want to stay consistent with who they are. Nobody wants to look like a liar. They don't want to say, if I said, I'm going to sign the contract today and I'm going to send you the money this week and I don't do it, I look like a bad person. They have this perception of themselves and they want to keep it. They want to be seen as honest. They want to be seen as someone that does what they say. And so by you getting them to say it with their own words, they're much less likely to back out of the deal. So those are going to be my 10 steps for running your sales meetings. Now, if you want a copy of this master sales script I just gave you today, leave a comment below on the number one thing that you learned in this video. And once we get to 100 comments, I'm going to be releasing the download for all of you guys to use to crush your sales goals. And just a quick reminder, if you made it this far, make sure to book a time on my calendar if you're somebody who wants to launch your own business, attract high-paying clients, and deliver amazing services using your skills and passions. Link is in the description to learn more on how we can best work together.